Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show. This gentleman has been all over it with his colleague Ken Rosenthal at The Athletic. The it being what's going on with Major League Baseball. And I have no idea what's going on with Major League Baseball, which is why we said to Evan Drellich, please call in and call us up. And he did. How are you, Evan?
You know, another day, another twist. It doesn't seem to end. Thanks for having me, Rich.
You got it, Evan. So what's the O. Henry latest with the twist, sir? What do you got for me?
Well, we are waiting to see if the league will up its offer from 60 games. So that came in when Tony Clark and Rob Manfred met face-to-face kind of secretly in Arizona, where Tony Clark normally lives. And it's progress because it includes full prorated salaries. It's the one thing the players have been harping on for a long time. They're not going to take a further per-game pay cut. And the owners finally came up off of that, but the players are sitting there now looking at it and saying, this isn't that much different money-wise than what it would be if you just implemented that 50-game season you were threatening to implement. So we want some more games here. And the league is saying, wait, I thought we had a deal. So even when they have a nice face-to-face meeting and make progress, there's something dragging everybody down.
Okay, so then let's take it step by step here. So the commissioner last week at the draft says 100% we are playing baseball because we still have that backstop where I can unilaterally say this is what we're doing. The Players Association then says on Friday, well, it's time for you to do that because we're done talking. You just tell us when and where. And the whole concept of when and where, along with an honest day's pay for an honest day's work, can be easily absorbed by a regular, normal citizen of America. So it doesn't matter that if you're making minimum wage or you're making a million gazillion dollars, it still makes sense. So then that happens, and then the commissioner of baseball goes on ESPN Monday night and then says, I'm not so confident anymore. How did he wind up in Arizona after all that, talking to Tony Clark?
Well, if the commissioner had gone forward and just implemented a season, it would have brought a grievance. And the owners don't want to deal with the grievance. They don't want to deal with playing a season, putting out the money to do that, and then worrying that the players are going to come back over the top and they're going to have to owe the players hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion. And I think there was a realization that everybody is better off with a deal. So Manfred essentially had his bluff called, and he went back to the table. And he approached Clark. They got together in Arizona, and they started to work on the framework of this deal. But where they diverge here is whether or not they actually got to a hammered-out framework. The league clearly thinks, like, yeah, we had something in place that needed to be ratified, essentially, that you were going to bring back to your players. And the players are saying, no, we didn't. This number of games is not enough. So, again, even when they start to get on the same page, they finally got to the point where full prorated salaries are what they're talking about for both sides. They're just not there yet.
So, again, I'm trying to drill down here as to what the owner's intentions are, because we know what the players' intentions are. They agree to something in late March, and they want 100% of their salary, and that's why they keep wanting as many games as possible, because if they're going to get 100% of their salary and they play more games, they get more salary. That makes sense. The owners, again, look, these are smart businessmen, and the commissioner is a labor lawyer of the first variety. How do they not know that an institution of the season from Manfred, the backstop that they've been touting, wouldn't bring a grievance that they wouldn't want? I mean, how in the world? So what are they doing, Evan? What are they doing?
Well, I think they always knew that the grievance would be there, but the union position was pretty clear that it's coming no matter what. It wasn't this kind of thing that was looming as maybe they might do it.
Right.
The league felt like the union was making clear it was going to happen, and so that scared the owners off. But in terms of what the owner's intent is here,
yes, right.
It's the same on both sides. It's money. It's just to extract the most from the deal that they can. But there is a suspicion that the reason that the owners went back to the players here was so that in 2 weeks' time or a week's time, if there is no new deal, they could just implement a season and they'd be more likely to win a grievance because the calendar would only allow 50 or so games, which is what that implemented season would look like. So there is a cynical read on what the owners are up to right now. But the fact that they did get to the same point on full prorated, the fact that the league has now made an offer, speaking the players' language on that one point,
yes,
leads me to believe we're going to get somewhere.
Okay, so what's the magic number in terms of games played? Because that's the magic number in terms of how much money is going to the players. By the way, this is Evan Drellich of the Athletic joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. If I'm not mistaken, reading your latest report, the 60 games at full pro rata is the same exact amount of money of a certain number of games that was offered by Major League Baseball at less than the pro rata, correct? So like they just move things around and say, hey, you get 100% of your salary, but it's the same amount of money that they put on the table. Is that correct?
So this offer is for about $1.57 billion guaranteed. That's more guaranteed money than the previous offer. The potential total earnings in this deal
yes,
is about the same. So whereas before the players were griping about the pro rata amount and the per game amount and the guarantee, now it's a little bit more to the issue of, well, what's the total? And the player stance is simple. We want more games because more games create more money for us.
yes,
and if we are going to give up the right to file a grievance, if we are going to give you this expanded postseason, even if we take the DH, we are giving you, the league, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars worth of value. So they just want to make sure, from their perspective, that they're getting that value back. Is it worth us giving up this grievance? So the number of games, your guess is as good as mine. Last offer from the league before this was 72. This offer is 60. Split the difference, 66, 67, something like that.
and that'll do it.
Well, something has to do it at some point.
You think,
or
though?
you're going back to the scenario where the owners implement. If they don't get to the point where they've essentially bought out the player's right to file that grievance, and again, the owners want that expanded playoffs. There's more money in that expanded postseason. If they don't get to that, then the owners still have the power, technically, to try to implement that season. It's just a mess. It's a nightmare where you'd have this ongoing background grievance while the players report, potentially worth a huge amount of money.
Well, I mean, how many players would report, though, Evan, right? I mean, if this happens and the grievance is being filed and the health and safety protocols haven't even been agreed to yet, and we still don't even have a schedule. We don't even have an idea. I'm assuming that there would be home stadiums would be used, but with no fans. And we have no idea what it would look like for a player to travel. We have no idea what it means for the Toronto Blue Jays because they're in Canada. We have no idea about any of that stuff right now. How many players would basically say, if it is in fact implemented by the owners while the union's grieving, how many people would just basically, do the old Rodney Dangerfield from Caddyshack? Ooh, my arm. Ooh, like that. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. That kind of hurts in my hip. Like what would happen there, Evan?
Well, and to be clear, the commissioner's office is saying right now that it would not implement unless those other things were worked out, that it would need some sort of agreement from the union, if not on the money, at least on all these other health protocols that you're pointing to. In terms of guys leveraging this and walking away from it, if you are not listed as a high-risk player, this is most likely how it's going to play out. If you're not listed as a high-risk player, or you don't live with somebody who's high-risk, so your wife, your spouse, whatever's going on, then you're not going to be able to get pay if you sit out. And it might be the case as well that you're not going to be able to get service time. So it would be a very unique person who's already got money and who's already basically hit free agency. How else did you get the money? If you're willing to sacrifice those things and sit out if you are not high risk. And you can't just strike right now. It's an illegal strike. It's not something the players could just decide to do. So I don't think you're going to see this mass movement of players who really don't have something wrong with them, who don't have a legitimate worry, back away from this season.
Okay. A few more minutes left with Evan Drellich of The Athletic, MLB insider here on the Rich Eisen Show. What do you make of the report that SNY put out there? And again, SNY, you want to take a look at parent company. You see the New York Mets and the Wilpon family. Saying that's anywhere between 6 to 8 owners, and 8 is a magic number because if 8 get together, nothing gets passed. 6 to 8 Major League Baseball owners want this to fail, want this to burn down to the ground, don't want to throw any money at this, think the season's a total waste of time, and certainly would be throwing good money after bad. What do you make of that report, Evan?
So Ken Rosenthal and I actually reported the 8 number, and I think it was Andy Martino SNY who reported the 6 number.
Okay, so
the difficulty here with this is that you can say an owner doesn't want to play, but what does that mean? Does it mean an owner does not want to play, period? Does it mean an owner does not want to play if you're paying the players full prorated salaries? Does it mean an owner doesn't want to play if you're paying full prorated salaries and there's the threat of a grievance? So all along, from the very beginning, let's take the first case first. There was a belief that there were some owners who just didn't want to play, period. People who looked at the season said, I'm going to lose more. It does not make sense. Let's just kick it down to 21. The overall truth, the guiding truth here is still that this industry, and that includes the owners, is better off with revenues coming in than without. But it is very possible that Rob Manfred does not have enough owners right now to implement a season. That's probably the way to read this. It doesn't mean that there are 8 owners necessarily standing in the way saying, we don't want to play, period, because they just made an offer to play at full prorated salaries. It's the scenario with the grievance that seems to be the most divisive. But if somebody has a list of what every owner is thinking right now, want to break it down by team and owner, we'd love to have it. We're trying. It's a very difficult thing to understand.
You're trying to nail that one down. I can't imagine that an owner loves the sport and says that they don't want to figure this thing out. They don't love the sport. Then they're in it for the wrong reason. I'll be very honest. That would just be so outrageous to me. And if that would be my team, and I don't care if it's a team that I've loved my entire life, I wouldn't spend another dime. I wouldn't put another dime in their pocket. I wouldn't do it ever again. And I think owners need to think about that. My buddy Keith Olbermann came on the show the other day and said that this is what, the hard line, if you will, not wanting to play, wanting to burn it down, wanting to show the players who's boss, not wanting to spend any money, that this is an absolute, one would say plan, absolutely something that they have in mind, and they think they're winning. This is what he said, and anybody else who thinks otherwise is naive. What do you think of that based on what you're hearing, Evan?
There are hawks. Jerry Reinsdorf has been a hawk for 25 years. There are absolutely people who run baseball teams for profit. Not every owner. The problem is most of these guys, every single one is different. Their own TV deals are different. Their attendance is different. They have different interests here. And I don't think it's the case that any of them don't love baseball. I do think it's the case, and you could probably extend this to the commissioner as well, that they love baseball, but there are times when they love their business interest more. And it's as simple as that. These are all very wealthy, successful people who come from a background of we're going to run this like a business. And like a business is something of a euphemism, frankly. It can mean what you want it to mean, but what they usually want it to mean is a certain level of profit that supports whatever their idea is of success. And the problem is nobody can sit there and go, no, you shouldn't make $30 million this year, or no, you shouldn't make $40 million this year. There's no controlling the amount of money these people want to take in on a yearly basis.
All right, Evan, before I let you go, crystal ball it for me. What happens here from here on out, do you think?
The next couple of days here, I think something has to get done. The calendar, if they're not going to push the postseason back, and the owners are firm, they're worried about COVID-19. Dr. Fauci's been talking about that publicly as well. If the schedule is going to stay the same, you just don't have that much time to get these guys to spring training. Spring training needs to be at least 3 weeks here. They're on the same page on full prorated salaries at this point. They'll figure out the number of games, and we'll have guys reporting, and you'll see a baseball season starting in mid to late July.
So you think we may get like a Father's Day present? That's Sunday, obviously. But what do you think?
Why not? I mean, the commissioner's office has been so good with timing everything, and every message they've sent out so far has landed perfectly. Why wouldn't they be able to pull that off?
Oh, man, at some point, we're just going to stop being so sarcastic and using our smile as our umbrella with this sport, man. I'm with you. I have the same approach, just trying to make fun, just to make light, just to try and, laugh off the absolute misery of what's going on. No other sport's going through this right now. None. But I think you've just kind of pointed it out, Evan, is that, some owners have different agendas. You're a player. You're sitting on the side. You've come to an agreement like, all right, we agreed that we're not going to be paid our full salary this year. It just depends on how many games we play. You agree to that. Now they come to you later on when it's time to play and say, we need to take more away from you. So your first thought has got to be like, what gives? And then you hear there are other owners that have different agendas, some of whom don't even want to play based on certain thing, certainly with a grievance, which you know is your ultimate hammer. If you're a player, it's your ultimate hammer. And then tell me if I'm wrong here on any of this. And then you're sitting here and you're thinking about all this stuff. And now you're wondering, even if they come to you with the full prorated salaries right now and talk to you for a week, that it could be used against you to take your hammer away, and then they can institute a shortened season and not pay you as much money as you think you're worth when you're putting your health on the line. And you're wondering if what's happening right now between the commissioner and your union boss is really even legit. Am I wrong on any of what I've just said?
You're correct, and you have to add the context of how much animosity and distrust exists between these sides leading into this. There is nothing that's happened in recent times that would make the players think, you know what, the commissioner and the owners, they've got my best interest at heart. If we give them some money back right now, come next winter, come free agency, come arbitration, they're going to do right by us. They're going to use that money for good purposes, for the betterment of players and the sport. That logic does not exist. It has been destroyed through a variety of issues and happenings in this sport.
Well, Evan, I think maybe we should just hug through the phone line and just cling to one another, even though we've never met. That's the way I kind of feel right now.
I'm with you, Rich.
Okay, thanks for the call. Great reporting with you and Ken. Thank you.
You got it.
You got it. That's Evan Drellich of The Athletic. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.